Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Help. I'm a camera nerd. I'm half of your hosts, Anderson, aka Films by AW, and the other half of our host is Mark, which is Help. I'm a nerd, and we're here to talk today about another controversial topics. Within the industry, and that is film versus digital. So, Mark, what's the difference you feel between shooting on film and shooting digitally?
The main difference is shooting digitally is way more forgiving. I mean, you see what you're shooting, you get a very accurate representation of the lighting and what it looks like and what it's going to look like. With film, you don't get any of that. It's like, you can have we talked about it on the last one, you had a little digicam that was hooked up to the feed, so you could record that and watch it back, but it wouldn't show you what the lighting was going to look like. So the main difference is it's just way less forgiving. You've got to be way more prepared, and it also costs a lot more to shoot on film than it does digital. And you can't watch your footage back. You have to, there's none of that. Did you do this in that take? Let's just watch it back, or let's just double check that. None of that. I mean, if you record like an assist, I guess through the little video assist type thing, then you could watch it back. But it's my cameras that I've shot on film didn't have that. We weren't able to monitor any kind of output. You could only look down the eyepiece, and that was that. And also, something we didn't talk about on the last one, but when you're looking down the eyepiece, two things. You have to keep your eye over the eyepiece, because if you don't, light will get down the eyepiece and that could expose on the film. And two, it would flicker. There was this flicker that your eye would eventually get used to, but it's like, obviously, as the shutter is opening and closing, there's that flicker that you see down the eyepiece. Yeah. So it's just a completely different process to digital. And, I guess it's difficult. What do you prefer? What's better? There's no kind of simple answer for that, I don't think. I wouldn't change shooting on film. I would, if you ever get that experience, we said it in the last one, I would take it. But I wouldn't take it for every job. And I think that there's a time and a place for film. There's films that would look great on film and films that maybe you don't shoot on film. In my experience anyway. So yeah, the main difference I would say is that you've got to be way more on it. And yeah, you have to be way more sure as a director, as a DP, that you've got it right. And when you say we're moving on, you have to know that you've got it, or that you believe that you've got it. And yeah, I think it's, the whole film the whole crew feel the effects of film, because you can hear it, and it's almost like that stress carries across that the boom, you don't get the boom in because then we've got to go again. Everyone's very aware with film that you don't want to be the one to mess it up, even the actors. So yeah, the difference is that it's just everyone's just way more on it, I would say, with film. And not to say that crews aren't as good with digital, but just it's a very unforgiving experience. So you better make sure that you're not making any mistakes, or as few mistakes as you can. What about you? What do you think? What's the main difference you found between the films that you've shot?
Well, I'd say, again, you have that security of always being able to look at your monitor and know this is exactly what the film will look like. Yes, depending on if you're recording a baked in look versus shooting more of a log, as in, a more flatter look and then a look with more contrast applied. You could still know this is more or less what it will look like, and you're there on the day and you've seen it with your own eyes and confidently you've got it. The only issue you could have is if, a card corrupts or whatever, which is very unlikely. Knock on wood. But because it still does happen. But I'd say you film. I think it's better to learn on film and then go to digital. Film is where you learn the worst case scenario and the best case process and regimen. And digital is where, okay, let's make it. We got to work here. We got to make the day. And I'm not, obviously with film, the crews, when you're experienced enough, are like that with film. But I feel with film, there is a magic to it, which is it's not really tangible. You know, when I say like that, there's this emotion and texture, you know. And again, I touched on this the last episode when I talked a lot about, you know, the films we are nostalgic about and we grew up watching and that inspired us were shot on film. And there's this sort of emotional attachment to try and replicate the process that they did for those films, the process that was taken on those films. When in reality, again, it's, you know, it's about that preparation. Now with digital, you can replicate that process and that regimen, taking care of each time you press the record button digitally, that you know that this is exactly what you need to get. But in a way, you're kind of, a good director still has that regiment, but, you know, there's times where, you know, you do feel like you're pretending because you're like, yeah, we can just go again. It's fine. It's just hard drive space, right? And so there's an element, you always know that. You try and attune yourself to have this strict process, but push comes to shove, it's, yeah, we'll just do it again. We can get another one in. I'd rather do that again just to be safe, et cetera, et cetera. But that's not to say accidents don't happen on film or unplanned things couldn't happen on film. I remember watching the behind the scenes to The Bourne Identity and the Clive Owen and finale with Matt Damon, where they're meeting in the film, Philip Field in that French cabin. That wasn't storyboarded. That was Doug Liman, Clive Owen, Matt Damon, and the sound recorder saying, this, what we've captured already, what we planned and storyboarded, doesn't look right, guys. Let's just go out and do this again. And they had 4 minutes of film, they said they had left. And they made that ending that, you know, him going through the field, shooting, whatever. At that point, the studio said, we're not shooting anymore. We're closing it down. And Doug Liman just took the camera, took the small recorder, like, yeah, let's go and do it. And that's the ending where we have, well, not the ending, the scene where you have Clive Owen saying, you still get the headaches? And, you know, and Jason Bourne says, Jason Bourne says, yeah. And he's like, look at what they make you give. And he just dies. And I think that's like such a profound ending. And to think that was just not an accident, that was off the cuff. So it's not to say that can't happen, but bearing in mind, this is also an $80 million movie. So it's like a little, but it's like, if you're a creative and you're a shooter that wants to make something, if you're a filmmaker that wants to tell your story, you're just looking at the right medium. But, you know, for me, it goes to show how many filmmakers, other than the elite of the elite, still choose to shoot on film versus digital. Sometimes you got to think about what's more important: getting that emotion, that intangible, that unmeasurable of the emotion and texture, and you have all that other risk where we can't shoot in a certain time of day. Oh, we've lost light now. It's like it's dusk. We gotta cut this out. Or, okay, yeah, the Venice, can we just go up an extra to the next base ISO to make it like see in the dark? Yeah, let's do that. And we can shoot for another 2 hours. You're always, and for me, I'm always going to choose, as a person who just wants to get my films out there, maybe if I get to that level of a Nolan or a Spielberg or whatever, then I can be a bit more picky. But I don't, you know, that's very unlikely, but you never know. But like the point is, I just want to make the movie, and whatever is the easiest most hassle-free way to do it, because the audience, if they're so engrossed in the story, they don't care. Like the scene I just talked about, I wasn't talking about it being shot on the film grain. I was talking about the line that Clive Owen said that they scripted, that they ad-libbed. I was into the story. I was into the scene, the emotion of it. Not that all the film grain was, you know. So I think sometimes there's a nostalgia to it that I get, that the big directors, the Tarantino, because I know Tarantino, he's very adamant that it's not a real film, that unless it's shot on film. And that's okay. You're one of the greatest filmmakers of all time. You get whatever budget you want and whatever story you can make. Sure, you can say that. But me, an indie that's just trying to make my movie. Oh no, because we're shooting digitally. It's not a movie. Shut the front door.
Do you know
right?
Do you know what's really interesting about that as well? Is I always remember, like, because it was such a closed book, essentially, back in, let's say, the 80s, 90s, if you wanted to make a feature film, you would have to shoot on film. And I always think, Kevin Smith talks a lot about, he made Clerks. That was his first film. He didn't go to film school. He went back to his hometown. He shot on black and white film stock because it was cheaper to process black and white film stock. But that also, what came with that was a lot more notoriety. There was a lot more kind of given to that because it was shot on film. So he got into Cannes with that film. I mean, it's a great film. Clerks is a great film. But it's like, because not as many people could do it because they couldn't afford it, when someone did it, there was less competition, which meant you had a lot more chance of getting into those bigger festivals because you'd made a feature film and it was shot on film, and people couldn't do that. It's very difficult to do. So he shot a film in the old place that he worked with his friends and people he knew in his hometown on black and white film stock. And there's this just element to doing that it felt like more of an achievement. And not to say, like, making a feature film is a huge achievement. Doesn't matter what camera you shoot it on. If you've made a feature film on any camera, well done. That is an achievement, right? But back then, because that was the only option, was to shoot film, it just meant it was a big deal. And he took that film to Cannes and he sold it at Cannes. And then, he went on to make his next film, which was Mallrats, and so on and so on. And it's like, it's much harder to do that now, to independently make something that is so successful, because there's a lot more people making film. And it's good that the industry is accessible, but it also makes it far more difficult. So it's and I think there is an element of film that it doesn't make the film better, but it's because we're all used to it, because it's nostalgic for us, we favor it. The next generation who have those films that aren't shot on film aren't going to favor it. They're not going to care if the film is shot on film so much. I mean, obviously people that love older films will, but it will kind of essentially die out more and more. And I know now, if you're, one of the things you can do if you're looking to shoot a film on film, perhaps that's something you want to try. I'm pretty sure that if you contact Kodak, a lot of the times for low budget short films and stuff, they will give you the film stock for free. Like, they won't give you a camera, but most rental houses, if they've got old film cameras in, it's not going to cost a lot to take that camera out. The only thing that's going to cost you money is the processing fee. So, and that's what costs a lot of money. So even Kodak, are trying to promote shooting on film amongst filmmakers, because they want you to shoot film, because they want film to keep going, and they want it to be used and stuff. And now it's really, like you said, it's only something that's really used in top tier directors that have a choice, that are going to be able to essentially be like, no, I'm shooting film, and if you don't want to let me shoot film, then I'll just go to the next production company, because there's many people that want to my film. So it's like, Tarantino has that luxury that he can demand and take whatever he wants, and rightly so. He makes great films, like amazing films. But it's great for people that can't afford to shoot film to go and shoot on whatever you want. Like, and let's be honest, like, there's amazing looking films that have been shot on digital, like stunning films that have been shot on digital.
100%.
And now we're in a time where, we talked on the last podcast about when those early digital cameras came out, they didn't have the dynamic range of film. But now we're in a position where they've got more dynamic range than film. And like you said, they're just more flexible. Like, obviously, if you're on a big budget film, you might have multiple various stocks of film, and you can just swap it out if you lose a bit of light. But most people probably only have that one stock, and you've got, that's why films were notoriously shot in studios, because you didn't want to risk losing light. So a lot of the time that that let you control the light, have a lot more control over what you were seeing. You didn't have to worry about changes and stuff. But then, you know, I remember, wasn't it, what's it called? 28 Days Later, I think, was one of the first big budget films to shoot on like some of the scenes on digital. The main scenes were shot on, I think, 16mm film, and then they shot on like mini DV and stuff for all those shots, all that intro around London and stuff. It was
for the London,
shot on digital cameras, and that was to keep the cost down because they couldn't afford to shoot, you know, on film for every angle. So, you know, digital, even back then, they were using digital as a way to cut cost on film, and no one, you know, can you tell? I don't think you could. I can tell that there's something, I guess, not quite as high def about the image, but most people, I would imagine, watched that film and found that it was stunning. And that intro, you know, is a fantastic intro in horror film, especially. So, you know, to the mainstream audience, if you're smart with it, I think that you can almost, depending on what you're shooting, you can get away without it. But to us, and to, you know, we grew up loving film, there's that magic there of shooting film, right? There's that you want as a filmmaker.
And we're looking for it, to be honest, man. And I think it's interesting to talk about, you know, I think of some of the pioneers. When I say pioneers, the people who invented the modern blockbuster. We're talking George Lucas, Spielberg, and I know Spielberg's I remember him famously saying, this is the late 2000s, to be honest, so he might have changed, but he was like, my studio will shoot in the latest technology, but when it comes to me, I'll still shoot in film. But I think that's probably a little bit different now, or maybe not to, because he can afford, you know, he's the most successful filmmaker to ever live, so he could do that too. I'm using a lot of hyperbole today, but it's not actually to those describing Spielberg. But like, I made some notes, and like I always remember the thing that was really fascinating was like the first digital Super 35 camera capable of shooting 24p was only 1080p. It was actually shot on the Attack of the Clones. George Lucas helped develop that, and actually they shot a little bit of Phantom Menace digitally as well. But Attack of the Clone was the first film where I think like midway through a Robert Rodriguez film, Once Upon a Time in Mexico, that was first to like be completely shot digitally and be a cinematic or cinema release for that budget. But then for Attack of the Clones, that was like the full film. And there was a little bit of a difference there. I think you look back and you can kind of see, even though it's sharp, it wasn't as sharp as say this Phantom Menace because of the, you know, obviously that was mainly shot on film and then bits on it were digitally. But like that was 2000, and I think the camera came out. That camera was around the late 90s. It was F900, I think, Sony F900. And you just think about how much has developed since, you know, and you know that it was also, they wanted to get the digital intermediate out of the equation, right? Because again, people weren't, as you talked in the last episode, people used to physically cut the film and attach it to another piece of film reel to create an edit. That, you know, became as a process, it became a little bit arduous and obviously not really viable in a new production format, especially when you're doing a lot of animation and video effects to it. So they would need to scan the film anyway and then process it digitally. So it didn't really make sense to continue that. Like, why not why not shoot this digitally? I was listening to Robert G. Deakins' podcast when he talked about Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? It was one of the first times that they were using that digital intermediate because of the look they wanted, to almost that bleach bypass look that Spielberg used in Saving Private Ryan, but they wanted to do something slightly different, and they had to end up, how did he explain it? That essentially they had to, it was shot on film, but then they scanned it digitally to then create a lot of, and it was quite a difficult process. And so he actually is one of the people that helped develop the Alexa camera, which really changed everything. The Red was the real, almost indie darling, but the Alexas where people who used to shooting on film would just go to that camera. And I think, again, when you talk about film versus digital, I think you have to talk about Alexa versus film, really, because the process of Alexa is as similar as shooting on Alexa in terms of the interface, how the camera looks, the mechanics, where everything is as close to those Arriflex film cameras as you can possibly get in a digital camera. And it's super robust, reliable. I think in our first podcast, we mentioned how the Red famously was a buggy mess, when they used a prototype on the film Che by Steven Soderbergh. They had to put ice packs on the camera just so it wouldn't overheat. Can you imagine doing that now? It's just insane. But so it was quite temperamental, and a lot of people thought that was more risky than shooting on film, because film, if you use the best people, it's a hassle-free process. But then obviously with the Alexa coming out and being so robust, it was really the one that changed from the industry standard, the game. I worked with another DP back in October, and it was the first time I had ever directed a film shot on Alexa. Not because we couldn't afford to, it's just there wasn't the need to, because obviously you DP most of my films, and you had a Red and we're Blackmagic, and I didn't need to. But I, for whatever reason, I hadn't directed a film on Alexa. And it was weird, even down to the beeping noise kind of reminded me a little bit of film, that everybody can hear, kind of reminds you of the, strangely enough. But like, I want to touch on that. I want to go back to you, because just talking about it, because, but let's talk about the cameras now digitally, what they can do, and what other advantage are you seeing? Other advantages are you seeing than than film? What can you replicate on digital that you can't do vice versa?
What can you replicate? I'm not sure. I mean, I suppose for me, when it comes to shooting on film or digital, I like to be able to see what I'm getting. I like that accurate representation of what it is we're going to be recording. And I also quite like, in certain situations that I've been in, it's quite nice to just see how things play out a little bit more. So you don't always have that luxury where you've been to a rehearsal, or you can rehearse as much as you'd like to, time restraints and stuff like that. So I think that, and I also, I like to watch how the shot develops, and sometimes you might want to change things. You might want to be like, actually, let's get this shot, or let's get that shot. And that's quite a nice process for me. It's part of my creative process, is to be able to sometimes change things on the fly, I guess. And, if an actor does something, for instance, that for one take, maybe they didn't do it for another take, or maybe it was just never intended and then they do that. It's quite nice it's quite an organic process on digital to be able to just go with the flow, essentially. And if the budget is there on film, maybe you could do that, but it's never been there for me on film. It's never really been a process we've always been way more restrictive when I've had the opportunity to shoot on film. So it's not something that can develop like as much as digital can. So if you take away the technical stuff entirely, like, it's more to do with the process of filmmaking and how it's nice to work sometimes. And like, maybe the director wants to try something. Maybe we figure out, actually, the production designer's like, actually, could we put this in there? And it's quite nice for that process to evolve. And I've been on shoots before where you haven't been in the location with the camera, and you've been there and you've taken photos and stuff, and you hope that what you've planned can happen, but it doesn't always work like that. And if you're building a set, or the few times we've built a set and I've been able to plan the film out perfectly, that's been one of the nicest processes that I've ever had as a director, at least. But in reality, when you're shooting in real locations, you know, you can measure and you can hope that the camera and the lens you choose is going to give you what you want, but that's not always the case, and sometimes it is just nice. I don't want to say wing it, but it's nice to change things. It's nice to adapt and to try new things, and digital allows you to do that. And it, you know, you can add in a light for a next take. I always think that, you know, if you've got a take and you're confident that you've got it and you're going to go for another one anyway, change something, right? Change something, because it doesn't have to be a light. It could be something that the actor does or something, but that can then affect your shot, or it could then affect your lighting, and you can be a bit more free with the actor hitting marks and stuff like that. So what I like about digital that is harder to do on film is the process of the film evolving as you shoot it, and just it changing, and, you know, trying new things. And I love that about film. I love that about making films. I love that to be part of my process, is to account for being adaptable to the situation, and, you know, knowing that you can, knowing that if the situation changes for whatever reason, you can adapt to that new situation. And I'm hesitant to say that I prefer digital over film, but there are the things that I prefer about digital is the flexibility, you know, the reliability of seeing what you get. But then the things that I love about film is the magic of that strict. It's almost I almost love the things about it that that restrict me, because it is a different process, but it is something about it maybe just reminds me or makes me feel like I'm doing things like they did back then, you know, like they did on Indiana Jones. And, you know, maybe it's nostalgia to some degree. When you get your film stock back, there is a certain look, there's a certain feel to it that reminds me of those old films that I watched. And maybe that's a selfish reason to love it, but, you know, I guess I love the restrictions, but then I love not being restricted, and those two things can exist together. And yeah, I mean, I think, would I shoot film over digital? That would absolutely depend on the film. It would depend on the film we were making. It would depend on what the story was, where the film was set, you know, when it was set. There's so many factors that go into, would I shoot film over digital? And there isn't a hard and fast answer. I'm not like Tarantino. I'm not like Spielberg. I think the story and the performances, and, you know, everyone's job counts, you know, not just the DP and not just the look of the film stock. It's everyone. So for me, it would just entirely depend on what I was shooting, and yeah, whether that lent itself to film. You know, I've seen films that have been shot on film that I actually think at film school that I felt, well, actually, I feel like, you know, you didn't have much light there. Maybe digital would have been better for you. I'm not sure that film was the right choice. But then you also, you know, I would have loved to have shot my grad film, Happy Anniversary, on film, because it was set in the 80s and would have just looked cool. It was, you know, but I didn't have that option. But so I think there's you know, you've got to pick and choose as and when you want to use it, and when the right that's what I believe anyway. That's what I would do. What about you? What do you think? What would you always shoot film, or would you pick and choose?
To be honest, I probably wouldn't shoot film at all.
Really?
Because, I mean, not from a DP perspective. No, from a director producer perspective. And, you know, obviously my perspective right now is just making films, getting my name out there as a director, and telling really interesting stories. And I don't like to be, often, as you know, man, I'm not always just directing. Sometimes I'm producing. Most of the time I'm always directing and producing at the same time. And I just don't want to think about the time we have. Sorry, not the time we have. I don't want to think about one risk. I know the flip side is, use the wrong camera and it could have corrupted footage, and that's worse actually. But I kind of want to shoot fast. I like a little bit. I always say I'm only going to be here once, so I might as well overshoot. Not overshoot in terms of scheduling, you can keep to a schedule out of respect for the crew and the cast and obviously your budget. It's just like, I'm only here once, I might as well shoot it, and I like that. I'm a bit more of a wasteful director in that regard, because I'm just of the opinion you like I've just said, if I'm storyboarding it, I'm only going to get it from this angle. I get shooting what you need, but I'm just not at that level yet where it's like, I'm only going to get 10 seconds from that angle. When that angle looks flipping great, I'm just like, let's just roll the whole take on here. Let's see what we get. Because you plan your film, but then the edit makes your film. And I feel with that process of shooting digitally, it really allows for that. Now, maybe 10 years from now, if I'm or we should say when, speaking into existence, I'm a successful director, maybe studio owner, whatever. And then I could be like, let's just an interesting project. Let's shoot it on film. But for me, I just look at some of the flexibility I'm seeing with some of these wonderful cameras that we have. And as a director, sometimes I like to get on it. I like to get in it. And obviously having a cinematography or a slight cinematography background, I feel confident most cameras give me a monitor with false color and I know I can get that image right, and it's just like, just pass it here. Let me just try and get this. I know you guys need to wrap. Let me just get 20 minutes with the actors and let's just get something here, or hey, I just want to get this and give me. I feel like I could do that. On film, I know you technically can, but then, sometimes I might want to pull focus myself. I'm not going to want to do that on film because you can't do through peaking. You need to get marks. Sometimes you just want to get it. You want to get it. It's good. It's boom, boom, boom. And, obviously with the right crew, you can just do that. Like I said, with Doug Liman and the Bourne Identity, that's what he did, And so I'm not saying it's impossible, but I don't feel confident. But I always want to allow for those happy little accents where, it's not like, oh, DP, you don't know what you're doing. It's, man, let me just get this angle and let me just shoot it. And and that for me is more valuable than sometimes I love the process. Don't get me wrong. I love the regimen. I think that discipline is lacking on so many film sets now. But when you gotta think, does the audience actually care, or do they care about the story you're telling? Mm-hmm. And if they go, oh, that was really interesting, I love that, and you can be like, oh, that was a scene that we just didn't mean to get. We just want to get a couple of shots here, And so I like my cameras smaller and lighter, which what appeals to me about using something like, the Red Komodo or Red Epic the Red Raptor. They're really small and light and still give you that image. Or even the Venice on its rail tow system. I was watching another video about it today, and it's basically you get this massive 8K raw file, and the camera is same size as a little bit bigger than my Blackmagic. And I think that's what appeals to me. The flexibility that these digital computers have and allow you to do. But the thing about it is, if you want your film to look like how it looked in film, you could do that quite easily. With the Alexa 35 that's just come out, actually you can bake in, they call it the nostalgia film film grain. You can bake in a film grain within your image. Not sure why you'd want to do that when you could add it in post, but you can here. Or you can do a lot more color grading. Obviously, you could do color grading before with film and when it was processed digitally, but now you can, pull up lookup tables that aren't applied to the footage you're shooting. So you could change the look completely when it's done, or you can choose different looks. You can replicate the process that people went with film stock with your different LUTs. Your lookup tables, which is the gamma curve that you had for your films. You can replicate all that, but you can't, but you can still have the flexibility of, okay, actually I need another 3 or 4 stops of sensitivity here. Okay, press that button, increase the ISO, boom. Don't got to get a new film stock and order it and whatever. And I just think that process is just so fantastic. But just my but one of my points I'll make is that you still have the process that people want that look. And there's actually, when you actually look at which cameras are more accurate to scientifically reproduce color, it is the Reds and the Sonys are more accurate than the other ones. But the ones that most replicate film, the Arri Alexa is the one that people enjoy using the most. Obviously, there's other things ergonomically and how it works and its robustness. But ultimately, people love the Alexa stat is the industry standard because of how you use it, its robustness, and most importantly, the look of the thing. Everything aspires to be that. And the new one is superior. It's got more dynamic range than I think any camera ever made, any film stock ever made. So that's the standard, and you could replicate that. So I think whilst you can replicate a lot of the processes from film on digital, there's things from digital that you can't, the digital that you can't reproduce on film. And that as a producer director is more important to me. Yes, as a DP that wants to try different things, there's occasionally, but I must say the last 5 to 6 years, my DP side of my brain has just gone like that. It's gone smaller. And then the producer director is like, no, I just want to get a shot. Let's just crack on. So it's hard to say.
I mean, let's just go back as well to, like, one of the main things, I suppose, is, you were shooting on film, you would pick your stock. Back in the day, there used to be a lot more options. Now I think only Kodak make films. So your stock, I suppose, is the equivalent to a LUT now. And as you mentioned, LUTs are interchangeable. You don't need to apply the LUT until after you've shot the film. You can put the LUT as you're shooting the film. So with that digital cameras, you've got that flexibility of picking your stock after the shoot. And likewise, your ISO, you shoot RAW, you can pick that out after the shoot as well. You got ProRes RAW, the red RAW, both of which are going to let you choose your ISO after you've shot, which is massively flexible because your color temperature as well is selectable after you've shot. You would have to, you got to pick the stock of film, what Kelvin that stock was. So it's like all of these things, you were making those choices before you shot with film. Now with digital, you can make those choices before you shoot, but also you can make those choices after you've shot. So yeah, it's just way more flexible, isn't it? It's you ultimately, you can, I guess, crude but save your ass if for any reason you make a mistake.
Yeah, but you know what? I think you sort of think of some of the other benefits, and you probably touched on this earlier. Just being able to see your film instantly, but then versus waiting for it to be processed. I love at the end of a shoot day, and it doesn't matter what I'm shooting, I love to look back on the footage quickly, just, before I leave the location. It's not like I could after shooting for 10 hours, I can't reshoot anyway. But there's a certain beauty of being able to go and say, look, just scrub through the day. Oh, that turned out okay, brilliant. And you get that confidence. And and for how I shoot and the work I do on, it would just be impossible to do that if I shot on film, and it wouldn't be practical anyway. And I think that's the thing for me. I think film, you have to have the crew associated. Digital, you don't always have to. Now I know obviously with Super 16, you could have, that was the whole point. It was invented. It was using for documentaries. You could use a smaller camera. So I don't want to spread false news, right? But at the same time, sometimes we're shooting a small project and we just have 2 or 3 people, and you don't want to have the hassle of, is that exposed properly? Is that in focus? You just want to go and shoot and know you have it. And I think that's the thing. But the flip side, now we've kind of come full circle though, because there's things about film that obviously you think about data, storing it becomes expensive. With digital, because of the file sizes, we went from compressed H.264 files that, for an hour would only be like, 20 gigabyte to for filming for 30 minutes in RAW is 2 terabytes of footage or 1 terabyte. We've come full circle now, and now the data management side of this has become a little bit more ungangly or a lot more complicated just because of the file sizes. So it's interesting now that a little bit of that process about taking care of your quote unquote digital negative, i.e. not wasting it and just leaving the cameras rolling. If you're a small production, you're thinking about hard drive space. You're thinking, yeah, okay, you know, when you start looking at like, we're going to shoot on something that is an 8K and it looks beautiful, but the problem is, you know, it fills up 20 minutes, fills up a terabyte card. You know, you can't buy an endless amount of hard drives. So all of a sudden, that process that should have been learned when you're working with film about not shooting until everything is right, I think it's coming back a little bit with digital. Obviously, you know, I'm not going to, you know, hard drives aren't super expensive, you know, it's all relative. But like when you spend $3,000 on a RAID drive that's meant to be your main edit suite, and you know it's like 64 terabyte, you're thinking great, and then you shoot 2 days worth of footage on one of these cameras, and that takes up a 30 hard drive space. That's kind of worrying, isn't it? You know, and I know we won't talk on storage today because that's a whole nother bag of worms. Tub worms. But it just goes to show, you know, about how there's, you know, again, that process shouldn't come back. But then the flip side, has that made things more disposable? Has digital made everything more disposable?
Not to me personally, I don't think, because, you know, like you just said, data isn't cheap. You know, I always recommend when you're shooting projects, if you're putting a lot of money into the project, get 2 hard drives to back up on shoot, because if one goes down, you've got the other one. So, and I always tell that to people, you know, whenever I work on a film, I'm like, you know, get 2 hard drives. And they're like, 2? Why do you need 2? And it's like, because you're spending thousands of pounds on the film. Spend a bit of money on a hard drive because you don't want to lose all the footage. So it's not cheap, you know. And storing my own films, again, like you said, it takes up space, and that space goes very quickly, and then you've got to store it, and it just doesn't make sense to delete it because you've spent so much to get it. So, but it is a whole different ball game. But yeah, I mean, shooting films, ProRes RAW, Red RAW, ProRes RAW, for instance, 30 minutes, 500 gig. That's a lot. So yeah, and then, you know, dumping those cards on shoot takes time. So that is stuff you've got to factor into your shoots now. If you're shooting in those RAW codecs and higher resolutions, you need to factor in that time, DITs, you know, extra cards, make sure that you're not waiting in between. Most people don't like to format a card through the day, so you're making sure you've got enough cards to get you through the day, and those cards aren't cheap. So there is an expense to shooting digital still, and there's an expense to shooting film, but it's different expense, different things to consider.
I mean, yeah, exactly. Just about, you know, clarify to people that those it's not, shooting digitally isn't free, you know, it still costs, and I think there's still a discipline that should happen. And again, my point about learning on film and then applying that to digital, I think most filmmakers would agree that it's a great place to learn, but then still carry those processes and those disciplines over to when you're shooting digitally, to then really allow you to get the most out of your story, to get most out of your image. You're taking care of each of that quote unquote digital negative, i.e. that pressing record on your $2,000 camera. You know, if you've taken the care that you've taken, that if you were shooting on on film on a set that's millions of dollars, take that care through every project. Don't just be willy-nilly. You know, obviously the thing about making everything more disposable, I think that's another thing, another topic for another day, whether, you know, we're talking about films versus content, the idea of content. But, you know, I think that's another philosophical debate for another day. But I think, we shouldn't look down on where we were before, but we need to appreciate where we are now. And I think the idea that, you know, and there's some filmmakers that have it, that film will never be surpassed, that it's like a record being better than the digital recording. And I just don't agree with that. That's crazy to say 100-year-old technology or 40-year-old technology, as some of these the best film stocks are, is better than brand new technology that's come out now with, part artificial intelligence in there. It's crazy. And for me, it's just based on, it's not based on any fact. It's based on your emotion, or it's not based on any tangible fact. It's based on emotional connection to a certain platform. And again, I get it. People have that, but the reality is that's just not, it's not true. And I think we need to be excited, and, again, but we need to be excited about the opportunities and the cameras we have to shoot on. But then again, it's only one part of your movie. And I think, when you're shooting on a Red, treat it like if you were shooting a Super 35 film. You're shooting on a Venice, treat it the same way. Shooting on Blackmagic, treat it the same way. And guess what? You're going to find that your film looks better and is better because that discipline and in that not just treating it as a disposable, I'm just capturing it, great, we're here, but take that care to plan. Take that care to brainstorm, to develop. Take that care to collaborate with other people and making sure that they're in the best situation to do their best work. Guess what? That's what makes a film cinematic. That's what will make the audience not care about what it's shot on. That's what make an audience remember lines like, I'm Forrest, I'm dying, or, oh, we'll hunt him because he can take it, or, several other lines. That's what make people remember, not what you're shooting on. And I know this is the camera podcast, and I'm sure our viewers would love for us to give them a hack of what's the best cameras ever to shoot on, but this is the reality. That's the reality. There's no shortcut. It's only about hard work and preparation. And on that point, I'm going to close out. Well, I'm going to head over to Marky Mark to close out today.
So guys, thanks for joining us. I hope that you've learned something, or that we've helped your opinions on whether you should be shooting film, or, even just motivated you maybe to try and shoot film. Because I would always suggest trying something, because you're only really going to know what it's like by doing it. And I would suggest even Super 8. If you can get hold of some Super 8, I know that you can get stock where you pay for the stock and it automatically pays for the processing. Try it, see what you think, and see how it changes your feelings about the film. So thanks for tuning in. Join us again next week for our next podcast. So we're going to have a special guest on next week. So it's going to be super exciting. So remember, like, subscribe, follow us on YouTube as well. Our YouTube channels, Help I'm a Nerd and Films by AW. Our podcast goes up weekly on both those channels, intermittently. And there's also a playlist on both those channels, so you can watch them all through. So join us again next time, and we'll catch you then.
See you on the flip side. Peace out.